Now I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to dry hair to shape. Before I start this demonstration, there's a few key things that will really help you understand how and why blow drying the hair actually works. The first thing to remember is that hair won't actually start to take shape until it's about 60 to 70% dry. We call this stage the rough drying stage, and it's important that you dry the hair in the direction that the hair is going to be worn. Another really great factor to remember is how the heat actually works. So the heat of the hairdryer actually penetrates inside the hair by lifting the cuticle layer and melting the hydrogen bonds inside. These are little bonds of water. It starts to make sense now why the hairdryer needs to be hot to reshape the hair. Once these hydrogen bonds have been melted, they can be manipulated into whatever shape you want them to be in. This is where the choice of tool or choice of direction is really important when drying hair to shape. You can use your hands for a nice loose natural texture, or you can move to a brush, which will give you a much more cleaner and compact shape. The heat from the hairdryer will also double up and help to evaporate the water on the outside of the hair. This is the drying process. Once all zones of the head have been fully dried to shape, the next step is crucial. It's so important to cool the hair back down. As we spoke about before, the hydrogen bonds inside the hair will actually melt when the hair gets hot. Once you cool the hair down, the hydrogen bonds will then solidify in their new shape. This will give your styling longevity, a really nice finish, and it will keep the hair in optimal condition as you're forcing the cuticle layer to close again. Understanding all of these factors will elevate your styling process. So the first thing we're going to do is to find our product of choice. Here I'm using Motion MSF1 Cloud, which is a matte styling balm. This is going to allow me to build a material and a texture that doesn't already exist. In this instance, I'm going to fill half the pad of the finger. I'm going to place it into the palm and warm it up until the product disappears. Next, I'm going to go through and scrunch all the product from roots to tips right throughout the hair. As I mentioned before, the aim here is to change the material of the hair to something that doesn't already exist. Once you have put the product into the hair, it's then important to go through and comb the product throughout the hair. This will encourage the cuticle to lay in the correct direction, and you can also place the hair where you want it to lay. For example, in the back here, we need to be extremely careful of where the crown lays. Pushing the crown in the wrong direction will make it stick up in the air. For the drying process, I'm going to be using my Dyson Supersonic hairdryer, and I'm going to use the gentle air attachment. This will allow me to have maximum control when styling the hair. I'm going to be using a medium speed and a medium heat on the hairdryer. I'm going to start at the crown of the head and start to rough dry the hair into shape. Remembering that the hair won't actually start to take shape until it's about 50% dry. It's really important here to rough dry the hair in the direction that you actually want it to sit. We need to be mindful of which way the crown is moving. It's important to follow this direction. A great tip here is to hold the hairdryer up high away from the head and move the hairdryer in the same direction as the crown. If it's particularly difficult, you can put your thumb on the crown for even more control. This will encourage the roots to dry in that exact place. Once we have the crown set, we're going to go through and start drying in the sides. I'm using my fingertips here and encouraging the hair to move in the direction that I want it to. I'm lifting and moving the hair, encouraging the roots to go in a particular direction, but at the same time creating little pockets and gaps to encourage texture. This is where the fingertips come in instead of using a brush. A brush will actually smooth this hairstyle out too much and I will lose a lot of texture. Again, as you can see, I'm using my fingertips to lift and move the hair. This simultaneously adds direction and texture. Once the crown and the sides are done, I'm then going to move back to the top and start to encourage the direction of this hair. Once I can feel the hair get to that 50 to 60% dry point, I'm going to start to scrunch the hair, creating even more gaps and pockets to really encourage texture. It's really important to utilize the fingertips, using scrunching motions as you can see here. This is the beauty of using product when the hair is wet and before drying. It really helps you to achieve maximum texture and movement that doesn't necessarily occur naturally. Once the drying process is complete, I'm going to turn the heat off and use the cool air setting on the hairdryer to encourage the cuticle to close again, ensuring maximum care for the hair, which will keep the hair healthier for longer. Remember, whatever gets heated up must be cooled down. This will also help to set the product in the hair. Remember that all products have a melting point. Throughout the drying process, the product will naturally melt a little bit. So the cool air will help to reset the product in its new shape and create even more texture in the hair. And there you have it, a haircut dried to shape using some product before drying, a hairdryer, and our hands.